Page 175 on your agenda.
Yeah, let's put the scrum forward.
Page 175 on the agenda. We have a new updated staff recommendation. And what I'm going to do is ask Dave to speak to it. But I think that Pauline, you wanted to move this one, and I want to second it for a number of reasons. But if you could speak to the updated recommendation, that would be great.
Thank you, Your Worship. Obviously, after the submissions and some of the discussion from yesterday, the team's gone away and put together a series of recommendations. We did have track changes, but there was very little left of the last one, so we're tabling them new. Basically, what we are proposing here is that we proceed with all the work that is non-controversial, or when I say non-controversial, everything that's upstream of where the two options really that we have a little bit of, we've had significant submissions on. So the first part of the recommendation under 9.1 really talks about us proceeding with as much work as we can. The reason we want to do that is because of the timetable. We want to try, obviously, to deliver relief to the people in Flockton as soon as we possibly can. And if we can proceed with some of the work, we are able to, we hope, move ahead within the next construction season rather than actually putting it back one. And that's what really does worry us. And so we have tried to put in that top part as much of the work that we feel is we've consulted and people are pretty aligned around that series of work. The second part is to talk about looking at obviously funding. Can we get some of this funding through the cost share? That's an ongoing, and that was similar to the old recommendation. And under 9.3, we are talking to taking the two options that we've got, so the two options that we believe are the two favoured or potentially favoured, the one that we've been out as a preferred option in consultation, and the second one that goes off through the red zone.
Copies for everyone, so...
Sorry?
Well, we can't see you talking about 9.3 until somebody
got
scrolls up.
We have got some copies somewhere,
Yes.
have we not? We could distribute them around.
Have you got copies for everyone?
Yeah, we could.
They're not, sorry.
No,
We're getting copies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they've been slightly updated on that. I'm sorry about that.
Yep.
So 9.3.
Are you happy
Yep.
if we continue?
Yeah. So
we're
just
down to 9.3.
Yep.
Basically, under 9.3, what we're saying is we're taking the two options, the one that we've, the Banks Ave option, which we've been out as a preferred option on consultation, we've had all the submissions on, and the second option that takes us through the schools, past the cricket ground and through the red zone. And what we're saying is there may be a different group of people affected that may have an interest that never decided to submit on the last process. So what we're doing is we're doing a concentrated or we're recommending that we do a better analysis between the two, tell you what are the options, because there are, under the multiple criteria analysis, there are differences in those two options. So we will bring those back to you and we will also consult. So we'll bring that whole package back to you, and we're proposing to do all of that work, including talking with the Ministry of Education, Sarah, etc., and all the affected landowners, and bring that information back to you in March. So you've got all of that information so we can proceed. So we're proceeding with what we can.
Can we scroll
and then
up?
we're going to try and clear that little piece so that we continue. Admittedly, the best way to do a drainage job is start at the bottom rather than the top, but at least it means that we are making progress on some of them. And some of those upstream projects may still give advantage to some of the community if we can progress with them. And then we're basically, the last part is there were a number of submissions that came in about people that felt that they had not been included, Francis Ave, for example, and we're just saying, look, we will progress with some investigations around those people. And then there were a couple of items raised under the the peer reviews by Jacobs, and we are going to consider and look at ways of addressing them, or bring you back further information if they need addressing. But some of those issues have been cleared up already. Then I'm just asking you to delegate to me the ability to go ahead with some of those contracts. That contracts are really related to that upstream work, so we don't have to come back to you, considering we've got Christmas and a reasonable breaks. We believe they will be reasonably within delegations, but this just in case they go outside that delegation. And lastly, we've got a recommendation there, which the wording has changed from what I've got on here, but actually we need to tie in the option if we eventually want to go through the red zone. We've got to talk to Sarah. Obviously, their process is to actually, they're asking us for our infrastructural requirements around the red zone, and so we're asking you to incorporate that potential second option, if that's the way we go, into that correspondence. So that's in summary of what we are recommending. And so I've got the team here that can answer questions on why we've done or eliminated C and D that didn't actually move up. So we're really back into option A and B because they are certainly the most cost-effective and the most effective solutions that we've got. But I'm not sure. I've also got Judith, who you know, who's obviously been involved, boots and all, with us over the last 24 hours and giving us some legal advice.
Well, look, I mean, as has been the case right from the outset, I just kind of want to congratulate staff for putting such an extraordinary amount of effort into finding a resolution that I think that will find favour with the council. It isn't easy, because what I said yesterday about balancing deliberation with speed. You know, we absolutely want to send the message to people in the Flockton Basin that, you know, we want this to proceed as quickly as we possibly can, but we also want to say we want to get the right answer, and we also want to, you know, respect the fact that neither the people in Banks Ave want to see themselves as responsible for not getting things resolved in the Flockton area, and nor do the Flockton people want the people in Banks Ave to be seen as, you know, on the receiving end of their problem that they don't currently experience themselves. So, you know, it's and I think that the two communities have been incredibly respectful of each other to try and find a solution. So I'm very grateful to everyone who's put their effort in, not just from the from last night, but from the whole way to go. We've really, I think, endeavoured to work hard to find a solution. So I don't have any questions about this, because I think that the solution's just now staring us in the face, which is great. So has anyone got any questions they'd like to direct to staff? Pauline, Yanni?
Thank you. Just on 9.1.4, can you expand on where the lower bins drain is and what works you're planning to do there?
Sure. In the
Wood Ave?
it won't be as far up as Edwards Ave. There's just a small amount of work just near the confluence, which is currently proposed within the scheme. In the scheme extent map, you can see a small amount of work proposed in lowering the bins drain.
Which is where?
It joins into the Dudley opposite the community centre.
Oh,
So
yes.
between Slater Street and Chancellor Street is where the confluence is.
Okay, and then I just think we need some, it'll be a long question, but why are we particularly discounting the other two and just focusing on these two? Particularly the Bruce White one, which was using the Randall Street.
There's the staff have done quite a lot of analysis on those other options. There are two things, as said in the report, and I'll get some of the technical people maybe to add a bit more detail. And we are potentially going down part of it with a wastewater, big wastewater. There are other services in the road. So when you lower a road, you have to alter and cost a lot of other services. We don't believe that's a cost-effective solution to what we're doing. We've also, if you have a look at the multi criteria analysis done on those other two options, they certainly were well back in third and fourth place. And, you know, they are looking at things like how much residual hazard you've got left, their operational costs, all those sorts of things. And if you look at those two, that's why we have eliminated those two options out of this, and so really cementing ourselves down to. I don't know whether any of the team want to add anything.
Yeah, you will have another significant debate over trees through the Stapleton Road properties. So the same argument would apply as to Banks Avenue about the number of trees down that Stapleton's Road route. So very similar. So we'd have the same issues, higher cost, longer, more delays, conflicts with other significant infrastructure, which in the balance of all of the considerations under the multi-criteria analysis, it wasn't favoured.
Yeah, Yanni.
Thanks. I was just concerned that the kind of solutions, how they take into account what happens at Banks Ave. And I know yesterday we were told that you didn't detect much flooding in Banks Ave. I think it was said that there was no properties that were breached, but actually we've heard from residents who have said that they have been flooded on several occasions. So have you got the capacity to actually look at what the downstream effects are and actually come up with mechanisms that deal with that flooding?
Two things I'd say there. As we did say yesterday, there's been a lot of analysis done right across, and I suppose one of the advantage of both of these two higher bypasses, it actually makes the water path shorter, so the hydraulic gradient is. But we will bring that back as part of the information that we bring back on those two options for you in the March meeting. We are intending to elaborate a little bit further on the work that's been done in that multiple analysis criteria work, so that in actual fact we can expand out why some of those ratings are, because there are a little bit of differences between those two options around cost, around operating cost, around resilience that we'd like to bring back to you. And so certainly we can look at bringing back some of that information of that analysis at that time.
I guess what I'm worried about is that the upstream work that you do now has a negative impact on the downstream properties that you previously have said, that have got flooding issues. Maybe it's a degree to which they've been flooded, but are we just making a problem worse for some people?
In the analysis, and it's fairly detailed, and we did say it yesterday, shows that there is no additional effect downstream if you do all the works. But you do appreciate we are making it, help me here, someone, but, the channel's this size and we're making it this size. So, there are things that we are doing down so that doesn't happen. Right. If we were trying to push that water in earlier into the same infrastructure, we certainly would have some problems. But it's been designed as an integrated approach to actually make sure that we don't transfer upstream problems to downstream properties. And that's been pretty sophisticatedly modelled.
Absolutely.
Okay, and final question from me. Have we got the legal advice over, the allegations that were made yesterday around us not acting in accordance with LGA and etc.? Have we had legal advice back that the consultation we've done meets all the sort of normal LGA processes?
Provided the team with some advice.
Yep. Have we got a copy?
Yeah, we can provide that.
Okay, I'd like to see it.
You sit here and talk to it, I'll hand it out.
Do you want to move into the microphone?
I'll give it to Claire. Sorry. So yes, because this is a matter of high significance that the council has assessed that, the council does have to take a more detailed approach to how it considers its compliance with considering and assessing reasonably practical options and considering the community views. And when you look at the report and the information that's there, and it's not just this report, it's the previous reports on what's been happening the whole year and last year, the council's been through quite an extensive process of considering options and engaging with the community to understand their views and preferences. So 14 options were originally considered, and in November the consultation material identified 3 options. Well, there was obviously a focus on the preferred option. So it was also done in a shortened time frame to try and keep the council to a timely solution. But the council's significance and engagement policy, and that's the old one as the council's working under at that stage, but also the new one, recognises that urgency is an issue that can require more tailored consultation. And I think you asked a question yesterday about whether there was any issues in terms of the Bailey decision and the approach being taken there. So I've set out there that I think this is a different situation and we're approaching it differently, and we are consulting before a decision is made. I think there was a comment from one of the submitters about, or one of the deputations about the level of detail that was provided in the material. But again, our view is that that's reasonable in terms of balancing the expense and the time that the council would take to provide more detailed information on the two of the options. So looking at the continuing process and the decisions made too, I've got some, set out some information there about, where we should be going now, and in line with the recommendations that are being made, that it is appropriate in terms of the views that you've got on the upstream part that's proposed to proceed to make a decision now on that. But strongly recommend that a decision isn't made on the lower stream part, which is in line with the recommendations.
Thank you. Will the report be revisiting the weighting percentages as per the Jacobs report? The reason I ask this is it absolutely works for the Flockton residents as it must in terms of floor level where 22% is given, but it doesn't work for the whole catchment for the Banks Ave residents where social and environmental impacts and opportunities are 7%, and some of them may, would possibly suggest it would be the other way round. So given this report too, this memorandum from Judith now, it says that we must consider new information. The arboricultural report we received late yesterday, in my view, actually is quite damning over the tree removal quantum. So will the weighting be changed? It's a difficult one to deal with because it's got to be, in my view, I think, weighted differently according to the different communities.
The peer review that we've had does look at the weighting, but in actual fact it says that we haven't put enough emphasis on the financial side of it, which is obviously the bill's going to be picked up by every ratepayer around Christchurch. So we will look at that as part of that analysis and we'll bring it back, and we can actually give you some feeling around the sensitivity around different weightings, I suppose. At any state, one of the things around trees down beside any drains is the problems that they cause long term to your drains anyway, and so there are a number of issues involved in that. And while I think that report identifies the trees that would be affected, I'm not quite sure I'd see it as a damning report. It just, because the idea would be to then replace, reinstate and do whatever we go, wherever we go. We don't go and just cut down and put in a drain and then walk away. We do reinstate appropriately in any of the kind of works that we do around public works. So one of the things I'd say, there is a recommendation, and that's one of the, under recommendation 9.6, consider all items identified in the peer reviews of the Jacobs report, and that one of the things they did identify was those weightings. So we'll look at that.
I do feel that the Jacobs and the agricultural, that they're out of sync. This talks about removal of some trees. This is, obviously quite significant. It's half the trees, private and public, over which you only require a resource consent applies to all of them except 10 of each, which don't necessitate it because they're diseased. So
I think in the detailed Jacobs report, I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, it did actually identify in both of them that there were options around trees, and as John has mentioned, it's also in some of those other, if we went down Stapleton's as well, there's a huge issue around trees as well.
The trouble with underground works will damage root systems, and that will have a flow-on effect. So, I've got the resolution now. Is there any discussion on the resolution, Yanni?
I know you gave a very eloquent answer yesterday, but the issue that were raised in the submissions around the consenting and the insurance, I know that work's being done on that, but do you think it would be good to have something in the resolutions that acknowledged that issue?
Sorry?
Around the, the letter from EQC, the consents that are, building consents that are needed or not needed. So people were worried that, consents weren't being issued for repairs and their foundations were being altered.
I did have, we were going to get a note in writing from the Building Consents Department on that issue.
I just thought it was important to at least have some record of that concern, accepting that it's probably more of a central government issue, but we should actually be investigating that.
It really is a separate issue than this, because I mean, it comes down to the definition of what a substantial repair of the foundation is, But look, Peter's got the answer. He was available first thing this morning. He's not available now. It doesn't make any difference to this set of recommendations, but it's not going away because we do need to respond to those people about the consenting requirements, because a lot of the problems are resolved for those that have to get a building consent, because then they have to lift their floor levels and problem solved. So, all right. So the debate on the matter, David East.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'd just like to commend the staff for the work that's been done overnight on this recommendation. I think it's very thorough and gives fair and equitable consideration to the lower reaches of Dudley Creek and hopefully address some of the concerns that the people of Banks Avenue have raised. I'd also just like to make the comment, I think, that one of the submitters we've had in recent days talked about pulling the plug out, and I think that in your assumptions there in 9.1, particularly of doing some further works in the river beds of these tributaries, is crucial. I've walked a number of these streams myself in recent days, and in fact this morning I looked at a section from Slater Street back up to Hills Road. The sedimentation, particularly around some of the culverts and the vegetation that's almost touching in some places, we need to address those sort of issues. We need to get the optimum flow we can out of the existing channels, and I would really encourage that work is completed to as high a level as we possibly can get. So I'm encouraged with the resolutions that are put before us today, and I think they give us great options to move forward on this project. Thank you.
Glenn?
Thank you. Our eyes have been on the Flockton cluster community, and rightly so, from the beginning. And the city's expected action, and we must obviously respond as a council. My question would be, though, is it action at all costs? The proposed loss of public and private trees, in my view, is too great. You'll see from the data, 213 out of 428 in a heritage historical area, 50% loss of that tree canopy. In my view, this would actually serve to undermine rather than protect the community well-being, which we are seeking to do. I support finding another way, and I'm pleased with this report that it seeks to do that. And I would like to thank you all for your hard work. I know you have worked hard, and at times it must feel frustrating. The environmental impact, I think, in the Jacobs report has been understated, as the criteria are weighted more towards floor level benefit, and rightly so, as for the Flockton community. But when it comes to the other end for Banks Avenue, it doesn't work. So can we find a way that works for both? It could be that the bill will be higher, although I understand there's still some variation in that. So this is a really tough decision, but we do have to try and act for all parties, and I know that we can do it.
Yep. Pauline?
Thank you. I'd support what both David and Glenn have just said too, and a huge amount of work and a huge amount of late nights are going into all this. The mayoral task force actually began last year, and we've managed to...
Year.
Oh, why do I keep saying last year? I think it's after Christmas already. Earlier this year. It will be soon, I hope. And that's helped a lot, having the upgraded maintenance, the Tay Street pump. Today we're sanctioning the culvert work, and I'm hoping that we will get a positive outcome for the Champion Street one, as you know. And I'm really pleased to see that now we have two options to look at for next year. So I'm really supportive of that, and don't forget that all the work that's going to be done here will not be completed till 2017 anyway, so another couple of weeks to make sure we get this right, I think, is quite wise. So I'm hoping that the the Flockton residents and the Dudley, the Banks Ave people will be happy with us taking a little bit more time to get this right. And once again, I want to say thank you very much, staff, for all the incredible work that's gone into this.
Yep.
Cheers.
Phil?
I echo that, and thank you so much for all the work you have done. And I think just my only concern, and thank you for the additional recommendations and advice. My concern about where we're heading to, though, is already what you have told us about in the report on page 184 in paragraph 4.43. And that is that the original proposal was the shortest construction period and lowest cost. And I think, I'm assuming from the recommendations that in fact we'll get comparative costs, and my reason for that, of course, is I'm very mindful that Tim and myself represent an area which has also been flooded, and at the end of what we come to, we are going to need to be looking at the full financial cost of all this. So, but I commend you for all the work and the additional information we've got today, and I'm certainly going to support the resolutions.
Good. Anyone else? Look, I'd like to echo what everyone else has said in terms of our gratitude for the extraordinary work that you have put in, and the teams that sit behind you. So if you could pass on the gratitude of the council and indeed the residents who are affected by the flooding in the Flockton area. I think that sometimes what happens is that in the desperate desire to get things done, we sometimes forget to take pause and reflect on what we're trying to achieve and maybe, and I keep using the phrase, the flow-on effects, because there is not one decision that you can take without a knock-on effect to somewhere else down the catchment. We've learnt that about water over the last wee while. I've learnt a lot about a number of things since September the 4th, 2010. One of them relates to complexity and decision making, and the need to engage quite a broad range of thinking in order not to narrow the focus on particular options. And sometimes when you've got people, and we got to the point where two options had actually been had got through to the final point before we hit the March situation, and those were the two options that then became the focus of our intention. And I think that the consultation process has actually produced some other options that we do need to reflect on. The other thing is, and I said this yesterday, there is a need always in a post-disaster environment to balance speed with deliberation. Everyone wants to get on with the job of recovery, of rebuilding, of getting life back on track. But you have to balance that with deliberation, because once you make the wrong decision, you can't right it so readily. And I created my own phrase for balancing speed with deliberation, and that was take your time as quickly as you can. And I think that is something that we're just doing here, is we're taking our time as quickly as we can. We are enabling some further work to be done to see whether another option will give us a better solution overall that will balance the needs of one area over another. And I have to say that I have been incredibly impressed with the respect with which the two communities have responded to each other. And that to me, sort of does show the maturity of the approach that all are adopting and trying to find a solution. So, I just want to thank you again, all of you, for all of the work that you've done to bring us to the point where I think we've found a way forward. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very, very much.
Right.
Well done.
Right. So that's all of the public sector items. So I would like to move that we